What's going on, guys? This is just a video to talk about the 1000RR in general, and this is a 2011. It's the 2008 to 2011 model, and someone had painted the frame from silver to black. Otherwise it would have been silver through the front there, which actually it does look a lot better black, I think, and they changed it to black in the later years. But also this has been painted with oil rub bronze. I'm not sure what color it was originally, but it's a great bike, and really the 2008 is basically identical to the 2016 all the way through. They changed the fairings and the rims in 2012, and they changed the rear shock in 2012, and they changed the front forks to big piston forks, which is not such a huge upgrade necessarily to the forks, but a pretty darn good upgrade for the shock, so I hear. Although most people would just swap out the stock shock anyways, but I actually still have it in there, and I have a 2012 stock shock in there, and I really like it. And I took a lot of things off of this bike. This looks a lot different than a wood stock, but it's a great bike in general just because it is relatively light, relatively reliable, and there's a few things you can do to improve it for pretty cheap, just like any sport bike really. And I've always been a fan of Hondas. The stock exhaust I took off. Obviously this is an FMF. The stock pipe was it had a catalytic converter built in. I still have the stock headers on there, and the stock cap is 8 pounds, so it's a nice weight savings there. And in the 2008 to 2016 model you can get an ECU flash, and that's basically they have sort of crippled the high RPM timing. Anything above 10,500 RPMs has been crippled by Honda only for the US spec version by about 7 horsepower all the way from 10,500 to redline, which is kind of a kick in the teeth. And but it's easy to fix. If you have either you can put a Z-bomb, which you can kind of finagle and install without having to do too much work. I put mine in and took it out pretty quickly. Or if you get an ECU flash, you don't need the Z-bomb. And the Z-bomb basically tricks your throttle position sensor so that it doesn't believe that it's at wide open throttle, and therefore it won't retard the ignition at those high RPMs. Although if you go high RPMs above 10,500 on this bike, it's pretty scary, to be honest with you. Straight up scary if you're used to riding a 600, especially on the street, obviously. But for those who want that power, and I absolutely don't blame them, the Z-bomb or ECU flash. You can get ECU flash on eBay for like 195 bucks. Not only does it repair the ignition timing, but it also makes a few tweaks in addition to that are kind of just generalized tweaks. This is like a mail order type of thing, so they're not actually going to be specific for this exact motorcycle. But the ECU is a really nice mod, and it also was customized for the FMF, which they probably just took the data from DynoJet's FMF map and tweaked it into this Euro map that they took out. They put the Euro map on to repair the ignition timing. It's pretty simple. I also have a lithium battery in here. It's a size 7, came off eBay. It's like 73 bucks. And this particular bike has a relatively light stock battery, so you don't save as much as you would think. But I think it saved, this battery weighs 1.3 pounds and the stock battery was like 4.6 or something. So saved like 3 point something pounds for 70 bucks. That's not bad. Most bikes have a 6 to 7 pound battery in it, so you can get away with an even smaller battery than this. You can use a 1 pounder. So, and those are even a little cheaper, 65 bucks. As you can see, I took out the exhaust servo, and that saved about, I think that was like half pound, 3/4 of a pound, something like that. The exhaust servo is this tiny little doodad that opens and closes a little flap in your exhaust pipe at low RPM. As far as I know, it's just to keep the bike quiet and to give you a little bit of more, maybe you get a little more low-end power because of that flap being closed, but that's probably debatable. Same thing on the intakes. On the intakes, you can gut them. There's a whole bunch of junk in there that originally was in there that Honda puts there that is activated at low RPM. Another thing I really like about this bike is folding mirrors. Easier to store. You can fold them forward or back. The only thing is, if you break them, it costs a fortune. This particular bike is got a carbon front rim from BST. Saved about 2.5 pounds versus stock. It's also got a single front rotor, obviously modified. That saved another, I think it was like 2.8 pounds from the rotor, 2.2 pounds from the caliper, maybe something along the lines of total of 6 pounds. And the rotating weight was, 3 of it was rotating. The rest of it is it's all unsprung. I don't even have the front fender on this bike, which is leaving the radiator exposed, but that front fender is 1.1 pounds. I haven't been riding with front fender in a long time. This has a stainless steel brake line, aluminum banjo bolt, unsprung weight that you can take off the bike. This is a pretty important mod for almost any sport bike. This one, anything that's a leader bike is going to have a 530 chain. In this case, it was a 520 chain conversion with a Renthal aluminum. It's a 7075 T6 aluminum. Really good stuff, really hard aluminum. I've had no problem using these with 1000cc. This bike makes about 160 horse at the wheel, and it weighs 380, something in the 384, 82, something like that, depending on how much gas is in it right now. So that sprocket's under a lot of stress, and I've had absolutely no problems with it. Renthal makes, as far as I can tell, one of the lightest rear sprockets and front sprockets you can get. The front sprocket is the ultralight Renthal as well. I did -1 tooth in the front and +1 in the back, and that really made the bike feel good. It reduces your top speed, but you get into your RPMs a lot quicker. Now these sprocket nuts are aluminum from Pro Bolt. It's like $16, and the studs that are going through there are titanium. I can't remember how much I paid for that. I want to say it was something between $50 to $70 for those studs. And overall, I think I saved like 2.8 pounds or something like that by switching. It was like a pound for the chain, a pound for the sprocket, and then 3/4 of a pound came from this here ultralight rear rotor. Titanium bolts, $13 for those, came from China. I still have the stock rim in this bike. I'd like to get the BST rim, but it's $1,900, so it might be a little while. This is the 2012 to 2016 stock shock from Showa. It's balance free. It's 7 pounds. It's about 1 pound heavier than the 2008-2011 version, and it was a noticeable improvement to the bike. Highly recommend that mod. You can get them pretty cheap on eBay. I got a good deal on this FMF. It was $100 shipped. Regular price on that would be, well, they were discontinued, but originally probably $300-400, something like that. Aluminum banjo bolt there, aluminum there. Doesn't really match with the titanium, but that's all right. This bike's been downed on both sides. I see damage on the engine case. Didn't really bother me. I think every bike I've owned every used bike I've ever bought has had that problem. This is a cool mod I did with the rear tire. This is a Dunlop Q3 Plus, but the size is I put a 180/55/17 on it. Normally the stock size would be 190/50/17, and I did try a Q3 Plus in the 190/55 size, but it's actually heavier than the stock tire. This one is probably a little lighter, about half a pound lighter than the stock tire, and it's about 1.5 pounds lighter than the 190/55. So it's a nice way to keep the weight down on your rotation. This is being on the outside of your rotation. You really want to cut every gram you can. I mean, even if you're going to be drag racing or something, it might not be a bad idea to use a tire that's not brand new, because these things lose about 3 pounds between their brand new and when they're spent. Same thing goes for the front. If you have a 120/70, as you can see, my rear tire was completely scrubbed out, and this isn't. You just really aren't going to get that whole thing scrubbed out on the street. So when I bought this bike, it actually came with a 120/60, which in a Q3, which was significantly lighter than the 120/70. The 120/70 I think is 10.1 pounds, or something very close to 10 pounds, and the 120/60 Q3 was 8.8 pounds according to Dennis Kirk. When I took it off, it was like 7.5 pounds. So if you want to save some weight, you could put a 120/60 on the front with a 180/55 in the back, and particularly in a Q3 Plus in the back, Q3 in the front. So I might try that next time I change this tire. I might try the 120/60 again, because I really didn't know how good I had it when I had that set of tires on there. I had a 190/50 Q3 in the back, and 120/68 Q3 in the front. And when I took them off and weighed them, I couldn't believe it. The front was like 7.5 and the back was like 10 point something. So when I put brand new tires on, I added 4.5 pounds to the back, and I could feel it. Believe me, the minute I pulled out of the driveway, I could feel it. It wasn't in my mind, it was noticeably heavier. So now a lot of people love the 190/55 though, because you get a lot more tire to work with. There's no way I would have scrubbed the 190/55 all the way like I did with this 180, with the type of riding that I had just done. And I have some pictures of that 190/55 after 800 miles. I didn't even get close to scrubbing that outside edge. I mean, I was close, but you know, not like this. So it is true that you're going to have more real estate on your tire if you have a set of 120/70s and 190/55s. If you want to get those extreme lean angles when you have really good traction, you can do that. But for me, I really don't need to be leaning over any further than I did to scrub this tire out. That was done in a parking lot. I don't usually lean over that far, just riding on the street. We got the mini brake reservoir. The bike originally had one that was broken, so I swapped it out. I had to put a lot of stock parts back on this bike. Actually, a lot of aftermarket, basically junk, was on there. I have got this for like 10 bucks on eBay. Saved about half a pound. I could care less about having a key on my gas tank. I'd rather have the weight savings. I don't have any bar ends in right now because I was working on doing I was weighing all the different parts and whatnot, and turns out the bar ends weigh like 1.1 pounds, something along those lines. So that's including the weights inside. There's a significant amount of junk inside there, and after taking them out, I did not notice any vibrations. I think that's more of a problem maybe with the 600s, because I haven't noticed any kind of adverse vibrations in my hands. And I'm sure if it was, I would not enjoy that. I would definitely, put that thing back in there. I've got an LED in here. I ordered some rubber to cover that, but you can't use. I mean, you probably could screw this stock dust cap back on, but at the moment I have a zip tie in the way. But I ordered a thing of rubber that goes in to replace all this and hold these LEDs. So basically it'll wrap around here and allow airflow to get through these fins. This is a little tiny fan right there. This is an all-in-one LED, which is about 60 grams, and I think it's something like 20 grams heavier than the stock setup right now. So there's not a lot of weight added by going to LED, but you do get a brighter light. And that was pretty cheap too. I think you can get these now for like pretty much 10 bucks a bulb. So definitely check them out. And this is just a cheapy rear cowl from AliExpress that I painted. Needs another paint job already, but as you can see, there's nothing to it. It's about half a pound lighter than the Pillion seat. And somebody at some point in time replaced this with a carbon fiber tailor-made undertail, and it looks like they must have customized it, because there normally would be like a bump right there, like a hump that comes down. But somebody must have glassed it. I got these LED strip, amber colored LED blinkers, and I have an LED strip right here for my license plate light. And the TaylorMade comes with the LED in the back here. I have no idea how much money or how much weight that saved on the bike, because someone did that before I got the bike, so I didn't get a chance to really weigh the parts. But I imagine it's pretty significant because they actually cut the subframe, and I don't mind it at all. It's actually really still quite sturdy. This is actually a 600RR rear set on the left. I just happened to find out that they were lighter and they were about the same size. Then I got it. This is like the 08 or 07 to 12 600RR, but this piece I just found on eBay for like 10 bucks, and it doesn't fit, so probably have to swap that out. So I still have my stock rear sets, and I still have my stock clip-ons. I've been doing some research on clip-ons, and it's a whole can of worms I'll have to get into.